Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to talk with you today about sleep. So like Cliff said, my name is Elyse Kemmer-White, and I'm a neuroscientist. So I've been having conversations with some of you and some out there about sleep and why it's important. Today, I'd like to talk about how sleep can be turned into your untapped superpower. So a little bit more about me. Like I said, I'm a scientist. I did my PhD at the University of Michigan, focus on Parkinson's disease, so not sleep. But I've also done sleep research at U of M, as well as at the Riken Brain Science Institute in Japan. I did my postdoctoral work in the psychiatry department, also at the University of Michigan, looking at natural options for treating stress management, dealing with anxiety and depression that did not involve the use of pharmaceuticals. So these are a combination of passions of mine. Improving sleep naturally. Let's see if I can do this pointer. Yes. All right, so briefly today I'm going to be talking about what happens during sleep. I'm going to show you what happens during sleep, how sleep impacts your health directly and indirectly, as well as giving you some tips on how to start improving your sleep. Also, I should say, I'm here with NeuroCore Thrive, which is right behind you there. We have been training people's brains for 10 years in a natural way to get healthier, managing stress, improving focus. We have our NeuroCore Thrive program right now, which you can do anytime, anywhere to strengthen your brain. Okay, so what our brains do during sleep is the focus. Many people think sleep is a time of inactivity, and if you were to watch somebody, you would agree with that perspective. They're not doing much. But their brain is actually very active, and it's doing a lot of very specific things. Your brains are very busy during sleep. One of the top ones is you're solidifying memories. What's interesting about this is if you were to stick an electrode deep inside your brain, which I won't do to anybody today, and record from it while you're learning something new, you get a neuronal recording. If you record from that neuron again while you're asleep, you'll see that that neuron's playing that pattern again and again and again. So it's critical while you're sleeping for memories to form and remain, and then they go out to the cortex and they're there forever, hopefully. Also during sleep, your brain actually shrinks a bit, and the spaces between your neurons are cleaned out by helper cells called glia. So your astrocytes are shuttling waste out of your brain into your CSF, into your lymph nodes. It actually goes through the back of your nose. It's pretty weird. But if you don't do this, the waste product from the day will accumulate in your brain. So this is beta amyloid that can lead to plaques, that can lead to Alzheimer's. There's a strong connection between lack of sleep long-term and Alzheimer's development. Forming new pathways and connections. So again, while you're sleeping, to make these memories permanent, or as permanent as they can be, your brain is creating proteins, it's strengthening synapses, it's strengthening pathways to make these memories more durable and last longer. Let's see. So basically there's two different kinds of sleep that your brain can engage in. One is non-REM sleep, that's the NREM. REM is rapid eye movement. It's not really a very good descriptor of what your body's doing or your brain. But you can see somebody's eyes move. You've probably seen that in a sleeping child. Their eyes are bouncing around, or in a cat or a dog. 80% of your sleep is non-REM sleep. That's the slow wave sleep. Your heart rate, your breathing slows. Your body's taking care of itself at this time. REM sleep, which is way more interesting to me, only happens about 20% of the time. And it happens the second half of the night. So the first half, your body is restoring itself, your brain's restoring itself. You release growth hormone during non-REM, slow wave sleep. That restores your body. So your body needs the slow wave sleep to rebuild itself after a hard day workout. Since we're from NeuroCore and we use EEGs, we map out electrical activity of the brain. We use that to strengthen the brain. I wanted to show you some EEGs of what this looks like. I said I would show you what it looks like when your brain is sleeping. So this one here, that's awake. That's awake. That's what it looks like. Your brain is going quick. You're having thoughts. This is called beta. When you get drowsy, it slows down to alpha. You start to space out a little bit. You daydream. Stage 1 sleep, this is the beginning of sleep. When you're first falling asleep, you have things called theta. that shows up. If you catch yourself while you're falling asleep, you tend to have wildly creative, interesting thoughts during theta. So that's an interesting stage of sleep. And then this is deep sleep. This is the slow wave restorative sleep where your growth hormone gets released and it goes out to your body and it restores your muscles. And this down here is REM sleep. I don't know if you can see it from there, but it looks almost exactly like being awake. It's really neat. What's happening during REM sleep is pretty cool. Although the brain pattern looks identical, basically what's happening is your amygdala, deep down behind your temporal lobes here, is talking to your orbitofrontal cortex, and they're reviewing emotional memories that happened that day. And they're talking to each other, and the more they talk to each other, the more the fears that you had that day get extinguished while you're sleeping. So it's critical to get as much REM sleep as your body needs so that you can manage stress the next day. So your fears getting extinguished while you sleep. Also, what makes dreams so weird is that your visual cortex is alert, but your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, sorry for the big word, but it's basically in charge. It makes sense of your experience. It shuts down. So you're having completely irrational conversations between your fear center and an emotional center of your brain, and they work everything out, and your taskmaster is quiet while you sleep. This helps you work it out. Interestingly, REM sleep is strongly conserved. So the first half of sleep is slow wave sleep. Second half of sleep, so the first 4 hours, you do the slow thing, you take care of your body, you clean the stuff out of your brain. Second half of the night is when you're dreaming. So if you cut short your night of sleep from 7 to 8 hours down to 4 or 5 or even 6, you're cutting off REM sleep. What happens then is the next night, because your body needs REM sleep so much, it actually chooses REM sleep over slow wave sleep. So if you're an athlete and you're building your body, it will actually choose to work on your emotions over restoring the function of your body. So that's why it's so critical for so many reasons to get a full 7 or 8 hours of sleep every single night. So I said sleep is an untapped superpower. And we're going to talk about how to improve it, but first it helps to understand just a little bit more about it and how it's regulated. This is to help me tell you that the sleep cycle is under many influences. You've probably heard of circadian rhythms before, right, where you wake up in the morning and go to sleep at night. Most people, this is the case. It turns out they did some really neat experiments a long time ago in the 50s and 60s where they put people into a cave and they left them there. And they learned that the actual cycle of sleep is 25 hours, not 24. That's crazy because we live on Earth where it's 24 hours in most places. So that's the point of saying this is that every morning when the sun comes up, it hits your retina, it sends a signal to your hypothalamus that says, wake up. So hitting that light in the morning is critical to have this red line is cortisol. That's, sometimes cortisol gets a bad rap and used inappropriately or when there's too much of it, it's definitely not a good thing, but it wakes you up in the morning. So an hour after you're awake, if you get the sunlight in your retina and your hypothalamus knows this, you release cortisol and you're awake, you're alert, you're alive, you're ready to go. So shortly after you wake up, your cortisol, this red line, falls down. If the cortisol falls down appropriately over the course of the night, your melatonin, a sleep hormone, starts getting released. And when that happens, melatonin doesn't necessarily make you fall asleep, but in the middle of the night when it spikes, if you wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. and you can't get back to sleep, it's maybe because your melatonin has not been released to the full extent that it could be. It gets you and it keeps you to sleep throughout the night. All these little red X's. So cortisol and stress go hand in hand. Interestingly, although cortisol is supposed to go down all day, when you experience stress, cortisol spikes. If you drink a cup of coffee, in the middle of the day or later, cortisol spikes. It makes you feel more awake, but it spikes, and then that prevents you from falling asleep at night. What else? Also, over the course of the day, you have a sleep drive. The longer you're awake, the stronger the feeling becomes that you want to go to sleep. This is due to several things. One of them is adenosine. Your cells are creating waste products all day. The more you get, the more you feel sleepy. Another interesting thing that caffeine does is it blocks that. It's an adenosine antagonist, which means it blocks the effect of this byproduct your cells create. So caffeine is working in 2 different ways to keep you alert. So I feel very strongly not to drink caffeinated beverages afternoon. Just going to say. Just need a sip of water. Check it out. This is what your body's doing day versus night. So our cycle is roughly a day long. And we have a master clock in our brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, long word, but it's cool. But all the other organs of your body, they have their own independent circadian rhythm. They have their own clock. It's crazy. So they coordinate with each other. During the day, your pancreas, it knows it's daytime, and it does its pancreas daytime stuff, which in this case is secrete insulin. If you confuse your pancreas by eating at night, it's going to keep secreting insulin, and it's not going to be making glucagon. This is what prepares your brain to continue to work properly over the course of the night. So that's what happens when you snack at night. You're confusing your pancreas and your liver, and then they send signals back to your brain that make you not fall asleep properly. Same thing with fatty tissue. It's called adipose. Muscle tissue. Interestingly, after I do talks like this, people ask me, okay, so when should I exercise? Because exercise produces stress on your body. It increases cortisol. And the answer is don't do rigorous cardio workouts at night. Just don't, because that increases cortisol. And then that prevents you from falling asleep. Resistance training, do it all day, every day. That's fine. It doesn't affect the cortisol as much. So yeah, if you eat sugar at night, if you eat fat at night, it confuses your organs. If you work out at night, it confuses your muscles. Light, of course, at night, we all live in a world with our devices and our TV and artificial lighting, and that's been going on for a long time. We can't do much about that. But all of these things send your brain the wrong message, that it's not time to sleep. So we're all probably a little bit sleep deprived. Sleep deprived is a relative term. What do we mean by that? What I mean is less than 5 or 6 hours of sleep. The less sleep you get, the worse these symptoms become. So your fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system, gets out of whack. It's more heavily weighted towards sympathetic rather than parasympathetic. You're ready to go all the time if you don't get your full night's sleep. Your stress hormones, again, cortisol specifically, is too high. You may develop symptoms in your body, headaches, gut pain, psychosocial issues. This is where you're not giving REM sleep a chance to manage stress more effectively. You might develop a mood disorder. If you tend in that direction anyway, you're not giving your brain time to recover. Cognitive deficits, your memory doesn't work as well as it does. If you're foggy, you might reach for caffeine. Again, if you do that all day, it perpetuates the problem. Same thing with cortisol. Same thing if you're irritable from not sleeping, you might reach for a sugary snack. That improves my mood. I don't know about you. But if you do that too late at night, again, the whole thing, it's a cycle. So the longer this goes on, there's some actually really bad consequences of not sleeping enough. And I define enough as 7 to 9 hours for a full adult. Kids need more sleep. Older adults need less and less sleep as they get older, but 7 to 9 is in that range where you should be. So without enough sleep in a chronic manner, your heart doesn't get repaired during the slow wave restorative sleep. Metabolic disorders, insulin resistance can develop. Your body is not managing glucose as well. The fats are not getting managed properly. Increased risk of cancer. This is insane. Your body's not restoring itself. The brain starts to shrink around the age of 40. This just happens to everybody. I'm sorry, it's such bad news. I have it myself. So about 0.5% per year over the age of 40, it just goes down, down, down. There are some things you can do to prevent that, but When you're not sleeping, that's accelerated. Your brain shrinks faster. This is, again, one of the connections between Alzheimer's disease and lack of proper sleep. So sorry, that all sounds like a bunch of bad news. It's not all bad news. Almost everybody can get better sleep. And here's another bad news table, but the way to interpret it is these things all lead to bad sleep, so knock as many of those out as you can. So this one, I've already talked maybe too much about caffeine. Just, decaf, it's great. Do it. Drinking alcohol, this one always surprises people. When you drink alcohol at night, you fall asleep just fine. But alcohol kills melatonin. So then when you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't get back to sleep. So it's 3:30 and you're wide awake, you're ready for the day, but your body hasn't restored itself. It hasn't gotten its REM sleep yet. So alcohol at night is not a good idea. If you do drink alcohol, there's the health study showing that 1 glass of wine a day is beneficial for your heart. Try and do it earlier in the night if you can and have it out of your system before you go to bed. What else? This has light, excessive light. Your room should be dim. Having the blue light blocked on your cell phone isn't enough, because there's still all the other colors in the rainbow shining into your suprachiasmatic nucleus, telling it daytime. So your lights should be down, like candlelight level, if you can. Maybe not candles, that's impractical. Some of these are impossible to manage. Parents of young children, sorry, it's just going to take a few years, and then you'll get your better sleep after they're grown up. These two are interesting. Insomnia is a risk factor for sleep deprivation. Yeah, it is. As well as use of certain medications. This is one of the interesting things that feedback. A lot of people are taking medications prescribed and over the counter to get a better night's sleep. There's nothing worse than laying in bed and not falling asleep when your brain is overactive, when it's going too fast, and you can't turn it off, so you reach for something that a doctor or Rite Aid has given you. This becomes a habit, but the bad news about these things, Ambien, Lunesta, even Benadryl, these all suppress slow-wave sleep. And so if you take these night after night after night after night, your body's not restoring itself. Your brain isn't clearing the junk out. It's causing long-term problems. Again, I'm going to stop scaring you about Alzheimer's, but there's really bad news. Long-term use of these drugs significantly increases the risk of developing memory problems and dementia. I say that as somebody who took Benadryl for years when I had kids, so I was kind of horrified to read that the more years you take it, the more elevated your risk is. So it's very important, if you do have insomnia, to manage it naturally as you can. And again, this is something that we can talk to you about at NeuroCore Thrive, is managing your stress, your anxiety, and getting a better night's sleep. There's some other proactive steps. I feel like most people know these things. The blue light exposure, the full spectrum light exposure, keep it down at night. Get outside when you wake up. Like, leave your building. Look in the direction of the sun, not directly at it. Get that natural light into your retina, into your suprachiasmatic nucleus. Let your brain know the day has started so that cortisol can go way up where it's supposed to be in the morning. Some of these other things, white noise, keep your room cool, basic sleep hygiene things. Make your brain health a priority. Now that you have a glimpse of how important sleep is, I think we all knew sleep is important. It makes you feel like garbage if you don't get it, but these are the specific reasons why. So just some things you can do: keep active, relax, manage stress, exercise in the morning if you're going to do cardio, healthy diet, don't eat at night, do biofeedback and neurofeedback, and we can help you do that. So thank you all so much. That's all I've got.